My name is Billy Chia. I'm the Asterisk Marketing Manager. So we'll talk a little bit about today. We have lots of exciting things going on here at AstriCon. So I definitely hope that most of you will join me through most of the day to talk about Asterisk. But I will point out that there are some other things going on, especially in the room next door, and we have DevCon going on. So there's lots of exciting things to hit today. We'll be talking about Asterisk. Like I said, my name is Billy Chia. I'm Asterisk Marketing Manager. Of course, don't let the marketing fool you, because I do some technical things as well. So I'm a DCAP certified technical trainer with Asterisk, and just all around Asterisk geek. You know, that's what we like to do. So you guys can hit me up on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'll put this slide up a couple times. If you guys are using Twitter today, please, sometimes they say put away your phones. I would say, please, take out your phones and go ahead and feel free to tweet during the talk today and use the hashtag #AstriCon. If you use that hashtag #AstriCon, you can follow the conversation there and hit me up on Twitter. We'll take a look at the schedule today. This is what we'll be covering, kind of roughly. So what I like to do with this sort of talk, I give this talk 2, 3, 4 times a year in different locations, and I like to make it different every time. So what I would really like to do is make this interactive, and we do have a large room, but I just like to engage. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of knowledge sitting in this room right now, and I like to get the questions out. So this is a schedule that I've mapped out, but really I want to tailor it to what you guys want to know about today. So as we're going along, I want to do a lot of Q&A, and if we can take a different route, or if I can dig into something that you guys want to know about, let's hit that today as well. So following the schedule, what we'll do is session 1. This is kind of our 50,000 foot. We'll cover basically just the intro to Asterisk. If you showed up today because your friend dragged you along and said, hey, Asterisk is this awesome thing, but you don't know anything about it, I want to get you all of the knowledge that you need to know so that you kind of understand the rest of the conference here, right? So we'll cover just a high-level overview, talk about some of the architecture of Asterisk. Getting into before lunch, we'll talk about some of the different ways, not just to install Asterisk, but to run it in some of the different distributions that are available, some of those options for how you would actually use Asterisk in practicality. And then depending on how far we get, if we start out before lunch, we'll start into an intro into the dial plan. And so if you've never done anything with dial plan before, today will be an exciting day. We will do basically through starting right before lunch and then through most of the afternoon, we'll basically do a little bit of computer science 101. And so if you've never done any script programming, like myself, I came to Asterisk from a system administration background. So I was, did a bunch of stuff, mostly networking. A lot of us come to Asterisk from the networking ground. But I hadn't done any programming before. But when I came to Asterisk, I started to learn a little bit of programming, and especially dial plan scripting. And you can do some really exciting things when you know a little bit of dial plan. And that's one of the reasons why Asterisk has gotten so popular, is because the dial plan language is so accessible. And even if you don't know anything about programming, you can actually do some pretty cool things. So if you're here in the room and you've always used a GUI and you've never done any script programming, like I said, we'll do a little bit of CS 101, Computer Science 101, and we'll learn, everyone in the room will be able to do a little bit of script programming by the end of the day if you hang out for the full session. So we'll talk about some other things too, configuring endpoints. And as we go through the dial plan, we'll talk about some other things, how to make IVRs and some other sessions like that. So for this first session, our intro to Asterisk, we will, they're just going to ask some of these questions. Hey, what the heck is Asterisk? What can Asterisk do? And who is this Digium company? All coming up next in this exciting session. What is Asterisk? We call Asterisk an open source communications platform. And so I'll just break down what that means. But at a raw level, Asterisk is software that turns a computer into a communication server. That's really what the Asterisk component is. In the old days of telephony, if you wanted a telephony server or a PBX, it used to be a hardware device, right? It was a proprietary RAN that was its own solution. And you didn't have this kind of programmable nature of what Asterisk does. So with the introduction of Asterisk, you had this concept of the PBX in software. This was very revolutionary. Now Asterisk has been around over 10 years. This is our 10th Astricon. That's very exciting. And so now there's a whole bunch of software communications projects. And Asterisk kind of has spawned other projects as well, even, that have kind of followed in the footsteps of having this kind of communication software. And of course, now Asterisk is not just a PBX anymore. A long time ago, it kind of ceased being a software PBX. These days, Asterisk is really a communications framework for all sorts of communications. And I'll talk about that as we go along. So when I say open source, you may or may not be familiar with open source. Open source is awesome. It is the reason that Asterisk has been so successful. And even if you are not familiar with a lot of open source software, you probably use it. So for example, the Firefox web browser. If you've ever used the Firefox web browser, Firefox is open source, and it's developed in much the same way as Asterisk. Linux, many programming languages and frameworks, and especially the Apache web server. And so the way normal, I should say, proprietary development works out is, effectively, hey, we've got our project, and we want to create some software. And so within your engineering team, you create some software, and then you put it out there. But nobody has the source code, right? That's what they call closed source. The source is closed, so the only people that have the code is the company that releases the product. Well, what happens when you get a bug? Well, we all know what happens when you get a bug in your Microsoft software or some type of proprietary software. You need to wait for the company to roll out a fix for the bug, right? Because the only people that can work on it are the company itself. Well, with open source development, what that means is everybody gets a copy of the source code. In fact, we put it out on the internet for you to download right now. You can go to svn.asterisk.org. You can actually look at the source code of Asterisk. And so what that means is it's not just Digium that contributes to that code, but it's all sorts of developers all around the world. In fact, we've had almost 10,000 different developers, over 9,800 developers over the lifetime of the project that have contributed code to Asterisk. So it's really a feat, and one of the reasons why Asterisk is so successful today is because of this paradigm for development. Because what that means is those people who are in the trenches, who are integrating, who are building communication solutions, have access to the source code. And so when they encounter a problem that they need a solution for, they can say, well, it doesn't have this now, but I can add it. And in fact, many of the functionality advancements in Asterisk have come right out of the community, right? In addition, I already mentioned things like rapid time to fix bugs, and even for those who are not developers. So just kind of doing a quick show of hands poll in the room here. How many folks have never done any type of programming? Just, no programming at all. So how many people in here have done like C programming? A lot. That's awesome. That is the most I've ever had in a session. We're actually going to have lots of fun today. And how many folks in here would be like Python, Ruby, PHP, kind of what we might call like a web developer or high-level language developer? Awesome, awesome. So this is good, actually. We're talking. How many folks in here have contributed to the source code of Asterisk? OK, so everybody raised their hand. We had like 75% of the room that are C developers. So by the end of the day, we need everybody to commit at least one patch to Asterisk. We'll go over the tools. So you guys are probably familiar with open source development. Something else I mentioned about open source. So probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, not so much today, but in the past, a lot of times you try to deploy a telephony solution. Or you'll go to a company and say, OK, I want to give you your communication server. And they would say, oh, it's on open source. Can I trust that? Is it secure? Is it, can I do that? And there was a lot of objections to using open source. This argument is kind of not really around anymore. So these days, open source software is just ubiquitous. Apache, which is an open source web server, it runs like 70% of the web. And in fact, if you look at like the 1 million most visited websites, it even has like a higher percentage. So the majority of the web runs on open source, right? Even if you like pull out an iPhone, right? So your iPhone's built on BSD. I don't know if you guys knew that, and your Mac too. So even your iPhone and your Mac has GPL code on it. So it's even open source under the hood. So these days, open source is so ubiquitous. It's so well established. I don't hear a lot of objections to even people using it open source. In fact, one of our keynote speakers from AstroCon in years past said the open source revolution is over, and we won. So it really is, it's part of our development cycle. But in terms of the sales cycle, usually if you're selling solutions, you don't even talk about open source. You just talk about how are you going to solve your customer's problem. And it just so happens that you're going to do it with Asterisk. So when we're talking about communications, we are predominantly talking about telephony. Traditional TDM and analog telephony and VoIP telephony. Of course, these days, Asterisk is really synonymous with VoIP. And so when you're talking about VoIP, you really can't throw a stone in the VoIP world without hitting Asterisk. But of course, when we start talking about unified communications, so these would be things like integrating calendaring, integrating email, integrating instant messaging, integrating other business processes into your communication server. So communications enabling business apps and integrating your business apps into your communications framework. This is what's going on, and especially even in the recent versions of Asterisk, Asterisk 11 and Asterisk 12, we have WebRTC communication. So Asterisk does a lot of different things. It's all focused around communication, so it's really is more than a PBX. It is really a platform or developer toolkit that you can use as your communications platform. And that's what we mean by platform. So I live in Huntsville, Alabama. That is where Digium is headquartered. And Huntsville is famous for having a space camp, if you saw the Space Camp movie from the 80s, or if you know that we have NASA there, and we actually built a lot of rockets. So the Saturn V rocket was engineered in Huntsville, and they actually call it Rocket City. So I had to stick a rocket up here for the sake of a little bit of analogy. And so the idea here is Asterisk is really a project. It's not really a product, right? So Asterisk is a project. It's not a product. And what that means is Asterisk is like the platform there. And it's a toolkit, framework, an engine. We use that kind of language. But Asterisk is like that platform. And then the solution or the product that you're going to build is what we build on top of that. And so Digium has our own unified communication solution. We call it SwitchVox. I'll show you guys some more about SwitchVox later on. But SwitchVox is like the whole rocket, right? It has all of this integration that's been built and engineered on top of that platform. And so that's really the way to think about Asterisk. Sometimes we may get a question, and the question will be something like, hey, does Asterisk have a GUI or something like that? Or when are we going to get an Asterisk GUI? Well, the answer is Asterisk has a million different GUIs, right? There is no one GUI that is the one Asterisk GUI. There's been a million of them built. So SwitchVox has a GUI. There's a free PBX GUI. There's an Elastic's GUI. There are all kinds of different other GUIs. Asterisk is that core engine, and then you develop your solution on top, right? By analogy here, and I wonder if the sound guys might trim me a little bit. It feels like it's feeding back there. Thanks, thank you. By analogy, we talk about Apache. So Apache, also an open source project. That's a nice, there's a nice comparison here. So with Apache, if you can imagine, you take Apache, you install Apache on your server, and you yum install HTTPD, and you've got your web server up and running, but it's not really doing anything. It's not serving web pages yet, right? It's actually up to you as the developer, the integrator, to build out the web page. So in this slide, this is like an HTML page, and if you're familiar with HTML, what this page will do is it will print out hello world onto a web page. Asterisk is very similar. You install Asterisk, and until you actually start coding some dial planner, until you start building some things on top of it, Asterisk by itself is kind of a lot like Apache. So here is the Asterisk code, or the dial plan that we'll talk a lot about today. And in this case, what happens is when you call 100, so if you were to dial extension 100 from a phone and send those DTMF digits to Asterisk, well, it would answer the call. It would wait for a second. It would play back Allison Smith saying, "Hello, world," and then it would hang up. And so this is kind of like the hello world equivalent within Asterisk dial plan. And so, like I said, we'll get it more into dial plan as we move throughout the day. Some of the characteristics of Asterisk. So, Asterisk is extremely robust, featureful, mature code. Asterisk has been around for a long time now. This is enterprise-capable code base. So, once upon a time, when Asterisk was new, there was a lot of bugs in Asterisk. And any software obviously has lots of bugs, we all know. But obviously, when things come out and they're new, they're not as reliable. So if you, like I said, it's 5-6 years ago, maybe there was kind of the message like, oh, I don't know if I can rely on Asterisk in the enterprise. But really, I haven't even heard that for several years. These days, Asterisk is dependable, or it's reliable. It's used everywhere from the smallest SMBs. It's used actually in almost every Fortune 1000 company. So almost, not just a Fortune 500, but almost every Fortune 1000 company has Asterisk somewhere in their infrastructure. There are even other large telephony companies. So some of the proprietary vendors that you probably compete with as you go to sell your solution, they're actually using Asterisk for something. So there's an entire island that runs Asterisk. There are entire cities that run Asterisk. It's been around a long time. It's mature and enterprise-capable code. Asterisk does have a global community. And this slide is perhaps a little bit old, or I need to get more pull. One of the difficulties with Asterisk is you don't always know when someone's deploying it. So there's no phone home code. We don't, in order to track or estimate how many servers are in production, it's really tough. And again, like I said, even because there are some solutions that are using Asterisk and you wouldn't know about it, right? It's under the hood, or it's tucked away. So the free PBX guys, actually over at Schmooze, they actually estimate that there are 1 million in production Schmooze distros of free PBX, or at least installations of Asterisk that are using the free PBX GUI. That there's 1 million production servers just of that. So if you can just kind of imagine in your head that there are 1 million servers in the world in production using the free PBX GUI, and then on top of that, all of the Switchvox distributions, all of the other types of distributions that use other GUIs, all of the types of installs that don't use any GUI at all. They're using Asterisk as a media engine or some type of other back-end router. So there is a lot of Asterisk all over the world. Asterisk is dual licensed, and so if you're not as familiar with open source licensing, there is so many open source licenses. You would have to take out an entire bucket to carry them all around, right? There's a ton of open source licensing. Asterisk uses the most popular, which is the GPL version 2. And Asterisk is actually dual licensed. So it's licensed under the GPL version 2. This is the open source license that allows you to download Asterisk, run it freely, use it in a commercial solution, right? And so this is the most popular open source license. And what this basically means is with a GPL license, you get certain freedoms, right? You are free to download the software. You're free to use the software. You get usage on that license. You get a license to use it. You're free to redistribute it. So you can actually take that code and serve it from your website. You're free to use it in a product. You are free to take that code, put it into a product, and then charge money for that product, right? All of these things are granted freedoms to you by the GPL version 2. The one caveat there is that with the GPL 2, it's like a pay it forward is basically the mentality there, right? So if you have a normal Asterisk install, like I said, you create some dial plan scripts and you just basically use the base code of Asterisk and you put your product out there, there's no requirement on you to share anything back because you haven't actually modified the code, right? But we have a lot of C developers in the room. If you actually modify the C source code of Asterisk and you change that code and then you put that in your product, you are bound by that license to then release your code back, right? So if you use any GPL code in your product and you modify that code, then you have to then release the source code. That's kind of how it works. And it's just to pay it forward. It's kind of like a share and share alike, right? In addition to that licensing, Digium also is OEM licensed, right? So like I said, there are large enterprises. There are huge customers of Asterisk. And what they needed is they needed a license where they could actually make changes and then close source those changes. And we have that license available as well. So if you're in that kind of situation and maybe you have a large install and for one reason or another you would need to modify the code and be able to close source those changes, that dual license is available too. And a lot of projects have this as well. So for example, Talou has the PJ project, which is a SIP stack that we are using in Asterisk 12. And so you guys will probably hear a lot about Asterisk 12 here in AstriCon. And so Asterisk 12 has a new SIP channel driver, Chan PJ SIP, which is in addition to Chan SIP. And if none of that makes sense, I'll explain it as we go along. But the new SIP channel driver is built on PJ project. And so it uses that PJ SIP stack that we are kind of building off top of. And Talou, who's a company who kind of sponsors that project, they have the same thing. So that's a GPL project, but it also has an OEM or commercial license. So that's similar with a lot of open source projects. Asterisk is supported, and so there is great amounts of community support. You are in exactly the right place with many, like I said, there's a lot of talent right here in this room. There's a lot of talent right here in the show. So this is a great place to network. It is a beautiful thing about open source and that it tends to form a community. So Asterisk is community supported. We do have forums, mailing lists, IRC chat. There is a lot of ways to get support, and it's also commercially supported. And so you can actually, for your Asterisk install, purchase a commercial support option from Digium. So Digium will actually provide to you commercial support on your open source project. And so it's even supported in that way as well. Looking at some of the use cases, do we have any questions so far? Looking at some of the use cases, and I really need to update these slides. The trick is, the technology moves along very rapidly, and so I have a couple use cases, but more and more I keep hearing about more use cases. So I'll talk about some that are not quite on the slides yet, but I have a few kind of network diagrams here. Of course, the number one use case, the thing that Asterisk is used the most to create is to create a PBX. And so in this scenario, Asterisk is functioning both as the VoIP and the TDM Hybrid PBX. And so Asterisk has the ability to speak multiple protocols or multiple signaling types and then transition between the two. So in this scenario, here we have, let me see if I can grab my mouse out of here. In this scenario, we have two Asterisk servers. And they're connected to the PSTN, and this hard line here would represent like a TDM line. So this would be like a T1 PRI here in the United States, or if you're elsewhere in the world, this would be like an E1 connection, right? So here's an Asterisk server, and it has a Digium card in the server, and that card allows you to connect a PRI into Asterisk. And so that gets you out to the PSTN to make regular phone calls, to call any phone number in the world. The PSTN, the public switch telephone network, is the largest and most robust communications network or any type of network on the planet, right? So it's been around for over 100 years now. But it is the most fault-tolerant and robust network on the planet is actually the PSTN. So you can get out with your old school DTMF digits there to the PSTN and dial any phone in the world. Additionally, here on this Asterisk server, we even have some analog lines. So here you could go to Walmart and get your $5 analog phone, what we call that a POTS phone, which is like plain old telephone service, which is just an FXO, FXS style of line. And so these are FXS lines going into like a Digium analog card. And so those phones are also connected to Asterisk. Now over here, we would have like these kind of SIP phones. So these phones are speaking of VoIP protocol. And the dotted line shows network. And the phones that are on the network and the phones that are connected via FXS or via that analog line, Asterisk can view them for the most part the same. It can do a lot of the same things with the analog line, and Asterisk just makes a call from this phone to this phone, no problem at all. Of course, in addition to having that traditional trunk, it also has a VoIP trunk, right? So we'd call this the voice over IP trunk. And this is probably a SIP trunk, or it could be an EEX trunk, although SIP is pretty ubiquitous these days. And so we're connecting out here to the internet, and so here's like a remote user that's just out there, probably VPN'd in back to home. And the thing you'll notice here is that the call between this Asterisk server and this Asterisk server goes completely over the internet and is at no cost, right? So you probably want to deal with some quality issues there, and if you guys have gotten into this, you realize that QoS, or quality of service, over the public internet is quite a thing to battle. But if you have something like an MPLS network between your sites, or there's other mechanisms by which to get dedicated bandwidth, then you're basically paying for the bandwidth, and you're probably using that anyway for all of your other services between your sites, and your VoIP service will run just fine on that as well. So this is kind of a very common use case for Asterisk. Of course, another possible use case would be when there's, say, a legacy phone system. And these days, this is somewhat rare, because if someone is still on a legacy phone system, they're usually pretty ready by the time they're talking to you. They're ready to rip and replace, right? They're ready to get into the modern era. But occasionally, for whatever the reason, it's very difficult to remove that infrastructure, right? Sometimes we see this in education. Sometimes in school systems, they might have a phone system that's like 10 years old, and they're like, we need to keep it for 20, right? So in this case, what Asterisk is functioning is it's just front-ending the legacy PBX. So here's a legacy PBX that connects PRI and analog lines, although I suppose it could be doing other things. But here, Asterisk is the connection out to the PSTN, and it's connecting via VoIP. And so not only do we have the trunk to do toll bypass in between the two Asterisk systems, but we've also dropped our PRI to the outside world. So here we're connecting to the PSTN, to the public switch telephone network, via an ITSP, or an internet telephony service provider, right? And so this is actually a SIP trunk coming, or two SIP trunks coming from the Asterisk boxes, and that's how it's actually connecting out to the internet. It's no longer, the only place it's using PRI is connecting to the legacy system, but to connect out to the internet, it's doing that completely on SIP. And these days, to get on SIP, there are some challenges, right? So typically, if you are a carrier and you are the internet provider and you're the telephony internet provider, then you tend to be in really good shape because you can guarantee QoS, right? But if you're trying to purchase your SIP trunks from a third party, sometimes it can be very difficult, and sometimes it's a difficult with troubleshooting, right? So you have call quality issues on your trunk to the outside world, and the question is it your phone system that you installed? Is it the SIP trunk provider? Are they to blame? Is it the underlying internet provider? Are they the ones that are causing the issue, right? It becomes tough to nail that down. So in scenarios, actually PRI is still very well used, or I should say used often in the US and worldwide. So I think I was talking with the integrator, I don't know, 2 weeks ago from South America, and he said, yeah, try using a SIP trunk in Guatemala. It's not going to happen. So SIP trunking is awesome. In fact, how many folks in the room actually are SIP trunk providers? So you guys are selling SIP trunks. Okay, so we've got a handful. just in the room. So here at AsteriskCon, you probably see a lot of SIP trunk providers. In fact, the ITSP is actually probably running Asterisk as well. And so SIP is an awesome technology, and you can have great cost savings by using a SIP trunk rather than using a PRI. It's just not a solution that works in every location. So that's something to keep in mind. Another use case for Asterisk is as a feature server or as a one-off server. And so in this case, the idea here is maybe, and here I'm showing like a legacy phone system or something along that lines, but the idea is that it could be, it could just be any kind of infrastructure. It doesn't need to be a legacy system. You could have a brand new, very modern, distributed system with lots of SIP proxies and a lot going on there with modern technology, but maybe you just need some type of one-off feature. So maybe you just need a voicemail server, or maybe you just need a conferencing server. Asterisk, actually, those are two features that Asterisk is used for very often. And the reason being is because Asterisk has a very nice built-in voicemail application and a very nice built-in conferencing application. It's actually got two of them throughout the day. So we've gone through MeetMe, and the modern conferencing application is called ConfBridge. But that application, that might be the only thing you use in Asterisk. So Asterisk does all of these million things, but the only thing you use is that one conferencing server, right? So that might be just a feature. Now, another use case, and this is one that I need to build a slide out for, but the idea here is Asterisk is used very often as the media server within a large distributed redundant topology, right? So typically the way this looks is you would have a front-ended proxy, like a SIP proxy, and this would be like OpenSIPs or Camelio. How many folks in the room have used OpenSIPs or Camelio in their infrastructure? Okay, so we've got several folks here that are using OpenSIPs. I know that Camelio guys have a booth here, and you can check those guys out and talk to them. And those projects, Camelio and Asterisk, they just go right together hand in hand. And so in this case, Camelio or Camalio, however you want to pronounce it, functions as this kind of front-end router or like load distributor. And on the back end, you might have like 5 or 6 or 12 Asterisk servers. And Asterisk is really functioning as the media server. So this proxy here is your registration server where your SIP registrations are going to. This is where your calls are coming in. It's load balancing. So this server is designed to very fast distribution and able to handle a lot of calls per second, right? But it doesn't have like the PBX and media features that Asterisk has, right? So then behind that, you have the Asterisk server, and that functions as your media server to do things like call recording or to play audio to your IVRs or to bridge channels between your actual phones, right? So, or other types of features. So that's another topology. And then what we often see is then what happens is, like I said, sometimes Asterisk is just used for its conferencing, its built-in conferencing application, because it's very robust and it does a lot of things. It's great. But then when you get to a scenario where you're scaling out and you're using a SIP proxy and you're going with lots of backends, then using like a single monolithic conferencing app that's meant to run on a single server and trying to do that in a distributed architecture, that doesn't necessarily work. So then once you get to this end of it, you end up writing your own conferencing server. And so for that purpose, Asterisk has a whole series of APIs. And I'll talk more of them as we go throughout the day. But predominantly, there's today in Asterisk, or I shouldn't even say today, last week in Asterisk or last month in Asterisk, there was AGI and AMI, which were just basically API interfaces into Asterisk that you could use to build your external application in whatever programming language you wanted. So if that was like in PHP or Perl or whatever you're coding in, and you've written your external application and it talks to Asterisk over AGI or AMI. How many folks in the room have used either AGI or AMI in the integration? Okay. So we've got a lot of developers in the room, but maybe some of these APIs are newer. So if I can talk a little bit about the APIs, I'd like to talk more about those. The very exciting thing is the new API in Asterisk 12, which is ARI, and that stands for the Asterisk RESTful interface. So the current, or I should say the APIs that have been around for a long time are AGI, which is the Asterisk Gateway interface. And the Asterisk Gateway interface basically gives you kind of like channel level control. When you're in your dial plan, you can go out to an AGI, and that lets you do things not in dial plan, but in your own coding language, right? And then AMI is the Asterisk Manager interface. And Manager lets you do like system monitoring and like system level controls. And between the two of those APIs, you can kind of put together a solution for your external solution. But there's been some challenges with it throughout the years, those who have done Asterisk integration externally via those APIs. So with Asterisk 12, that is in alpha right now, with the beta coming very soon, Asterisk 12 has a new API, ARI, the Asterisk RESTful interface. And this is a RESTful API that is designed for external applications. And so the exact use case for ARI is, rather than using the monolithic conferencing app, or rather than using the monolithic queues app, you could build your own queues app externally over a RESTful interface in Asterisk. You could build your own conferencing app externally with a REST interface in Asterisk. And so both are kind of use cases, all depending on what you're doing with Asterisk. Like I said, in some cases, you might just use it for the conference server. You might use it for a PBX for a whole smattering of features. You might use it just as a media engine, and you've built your own custom conferencing application external to Asterisk. All those are kind of use cases for Asterisk. Of course, we would talk about who is Digium. Digium is the Asterisk company. And so this is a picture of Mark. Mark is awesome. He is going to be hanging out here at AstriCon, and you guys should just mob him. I mean, if you guys see him coming up, just like everybody, just gather around. And he's like totally the most down-to-earth guy. He's not like a rock star or anything like that. So I don't know if he'd be intimidated by the mobs or not, but he's just pretty cool, chill guy to talk to. So anyway, the idea here is Mark invented Asterisk in 1999 when he was like a college student, as the story goes. So he basically was running a Linux support services. This was kind of like his side business as a college kid, right? So what would happen is people would need support for their Linux system, and they would call Mark, and then Mark would broker that out to his buddies, or he might take some of those calls and basically give them support on Linux, right? This was his business. Well, the business got very successful. It grew and grew and grew, and pretty soon, running the calls through his cell phone wasn't doing it anymore. So he's like, man, I need a PBX. So he got some venture funding, and it was a couple $1,000s, and he went out to go buy a PBX, and it was going to cost every single cent that he had, or a lot of it, was going to be to buy the PBX. So Mark said, oh, well, maybe I can just build my own, was kind of his solution. And he didn't really realize how much of an undertaking that was. Probably if he would have known how huge of an undertaking it was to really build your own software PBX, maybe he would not have tackled it. But in naivety, it was a good thing because he said, okay, hey, I'm gonna go after this thing. And he did it. He created a version of Asterisk. He open sourced it. He put it out on the internet. Tons and tons of people have contributed to it. And now we have this amazing project that we have today. So what was once Linux Support Services, Mark's company that started in his dorm room, is now Digium, the Asterisk company. We have over 170 employees these days. And we really have a twofold mission. The twofold mission Digium, so I work for Digium as the marketing manager for Asterisk and our CCS products. And this is kind of how it works, right? So as an open source company, it's a kind of tricky thing to manage. How do you manage this? You want to be able to contribute code back to the world. You want to be able to give this code to the world, and that's an awesome thing. That's what we're super excited to do. So as the open source sponsors of the Asterisk project, we take very seriously the stewardship and the shepherding of that code base. Asterisk is the #1 open source telephony platform on the planet, and it has been for the last 10 years, and we're very dedicated to seeing it for the next 10 years and beyond, right? So on one side of our business, we're very focused on making Asterisk the best thing it can be and giving that code out to everybody, right? Of course, you still have to keep the lights on, and you have to fund that development, right? So the way that Asterisk is funded predominantly, so it's funded via a lot of sources, obviously, but the number one source, the number one cash flow into Asterisk development is the sale of Digium products, right? And so I don't want to get too commercial. I am the marketing guy, but I won't give you guys too much marketing stuff. But basically, the idea here is when you buy a Digium phone, it funds Asterisk. When you buy a SwitchVox system, it actually funds development of Asterisk, right? Because here's this company, and this is how the company generates revenues. So on the one hand, we want to shepherd the project. On the other hand, we have an entire product suite, and our product suite is designed around you, right? So we create products and services that are for those people who want to develop around Asterisk. So we build solutions on top of Asterisk, like SwitchVox, and we build solutions around Asterisk, like our telephony cards, our VoIP gateways, and our phones. And I might show some of those to you guys. So this is like a SwitchVox server and our telephony cards. So like I said, SwitchVox is a really good use case analogy because there are a lot of unified communication systems built on Asterisk, and SwitchVox is one of them. And so at its core, the engine that runs SwitchVox is Asterisk, right? But SwitchVox is a whole UC solution. So this is a picture of our call control panel. We call it the switchboard. This is all code that we've built on top of Asterisk that is apart from the base code. And actually, SwitchVox was acquired. So it was originally just a product that was built by another company called ForLoop. And then Digium acquired ForLoop. And now SwitchVox is a Digium product. So that's a good example of something that's built on top of Asterisk. But there are also other types of hardware solutions. So for example, we have VoIP gateways. And the VoIP gateways are really nice. We've seen these. People are excited about having a VoIP gateway because it's a small embedded solution. And so the idea here is when you need SIP to TDM conversion, you could buy a Digium card and build it yourself, right? But then you have to put the integration of the development work into just building that gateway. So a lot of times we find that Asterisk integrators really like having these embedded gateways because it's a product you can throw in really quick and do your SIP to TDM conversion, and then you can focus your development efforts on your core product, right? I already mentioned support. You can get commercial support. We provide support because we want to see Asterisk successful. We provide training. And in fact, a lot of the content today actually comes from our Asterisk training classes. And so if you like the content today, this is like the one-day super high overview. It doesn't get too in-depth stuff. But if you like that, we have an online version of the course. We have a hands-on course. So there's a 3-day hands-on course with labs. And there's a 5-day Asterisk Advanced course where we get into AGI and AMI. We talk about database integration, all of that in our advanced courses. And then if you see the folks, I don't have my badge on me, but if you see the folks with the blue ribbon, that means they're DCAP certified. So that's the Digium Asterisk Certified Asterisk Professionals. And if you would like to go for the DCAP as well, we actually are offering DCAP here. So if you talk with the guys in the booth and say, hey, I would like to become DCAP certified. I'd like to be a certified Asterisk professional. We are actually conducting the test here at AstriCon, and there are a few open sessions that you guys can sign up for. The other thing I'll pitch right now, while I'm talking about sitting down and signing up and getting in the code, is the fastest dude to the dial tone fastest dudes to the dial tone contest. Okay, so how many folks in the room have either competed in a dial tone contest before or know what the fastest dude to the dial tone is? Cassius, awesome, my man, and then one in the back too. So everybody else, I want you guys to stop by my booth tonight. The way the contest works is I've got 2 servers and I've got 2 phones. And you get your choice between vanilla Asterisk, which everybody in this room will be able to use by the end of the day with dial plan scripting, right? So get your choice between vanilla Asterisk, Elastics, or free PBX. And you and a buddy compete together, right? So you've got your phone and your buddy's got their phone, and you got to make a call between the 2 phones over a trunk between the servers. The fastest team to do that, you guys both win an iPad. So want to see everyone come and compete. And I'll pitch some other things that are coming along as we talk about there. But do we have any questions just over that first section there, talking about our introduction to Asterisk? I'll pop up our next series of slides. It seems like most folks are pretty familiar, which is good. Let me grab some water. Probably, it seems like I said, like we have a lot of developers in the room, but just a few folks that have used AGI and AMI. Let me see, how many folks in the room would say that their solution is predominantly, say, like a PBX solution? They're providing like a PBX, okay? We've got a couple of those. How many people are using Asterisk, like I was talking about, as, say, like a media server where you've got a distributed architecture? A couple guys are hanging out. How about just as a feature server, as that conferencing server, or using it just as a feature server? How many folks are not using Asterisk yet, are just here to check it out? Couple folks in the room, just scoping it out. That's awesome. How many people in the room, while we're all raising hands, how many people in the room, is this your first AstriCon that you guys have been to? Okay. This is a lot. This is always very exciting that we always have lots of folks that are new to the community. And who I was just talking to? One of our channel partners was telling me that they had gone to like an Avaya conference or something like that, and they were like, at this Avaya conference, or it was Mitel or one of those big guys, and they asked the question, how many people here, is this your first conference? And 0 hands went up. And they said, how many people have been here for 5 years? Nobody. How about 10 years? Nobody. 25 years, everybody there had been selling that solution for 25 years, and there was nobody new. It was a stagnant project. They were the big incumbent player. And so even though Asterisk now is a bit of a big incumbent player, even though Asterisk now, like I said, is so ubiquitous, it's used worldwide, it's extremely popular, and it is very popular, but there are still new people coming to the project. There's still lots of new development going on, so that's very exciting. How about, is anybody doing anything different with Asterisk or using Asterisk in a way I haven't asked about yet? Did you have a...
Yeah, I have a friend of mine down in Latin America that's actually doing home automation with Asterisk.
So a friend that's doing home automation. So this would be, I don't know if you guys, there's videos on YouTube where you dial in via your cell phone. You can use DTMF to open your garage door, turn your lights on. There is a home automation with Asterisk. There is actually one of the early projects was somebody had used, via those APIs I was talking about, they had installed some hardware that tested the moisture within soil, right? And so what happens is they put these in their plants in their house, and when the plant was dry and needed to be watered, it would actually send you a phone call and tell you, hey, water me. And so they called it botanicals. So there's some kind of things. How about anybody else different, new, or unique in the back here?
I'm kind of a Asterisk newbie. The company that I work for, we're actually implementing similar to what you were saying earlier about we are using OpenSips. We provide a executive suites company.
Okay, so you guys are using OpenSips and doing an executive suite company.
Correct, but we're running a cluster where we're providing everything basically. We have the dedicated conference calls system, the voicemail system. All of these, they're all running Asterisk, all integrated together. But we're using all of this we're supporting 24 centers, 50 to 60 clients per center. Each client that comes in gets their own separate dial plan and everything as if they were a complete individual company. We actually just crossed the 10 million minute mark. So we've been doing it in enterprise with a full feature set for every customer, and it's all automated. So
okay.
Our non-technical staff can actually, with a few clicks, completely set up a company.
And you guys are using like a DevOps to do that kind of stuff?
Actually, everything's custom written.
You guys are all custom written. Okay, that's awesome. And you guys, this is Brian. So all of your technical questions.
Go to my boss.
How about, so we talked about PBX, we talked about a feature server, talked about watering your plants, home automation. Anybody else doing something I haven't mentioned yet? Let's see in the back here, maybe we, this is kind of always neat just to hear some different stories of what's being done with Asterisk. And if you could just share your name.
Okay, good morning everyone. Ifeanyi from Nigeria, actually.
Nigeria, and what are you doing with Asterisk?
Okay, we are building an IVR payment system for automated payments
Okay.
with my company, Interra Networks.
Excellent. So they can call into the IVR.
You call into the
refill
IVR
medication
and you can,
automation.
Do money transfer, recharge your mobile phones.
Oh, okay. So recharge your mobile phones.
Yeah,
All through the IVR transfer.
all through the IVR
Excellent.
transfer.
Are you guys doing speech recognition or just all DTMF?
No, DTMS.
All DTMF?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's very good. Thank you, man. So you guys get a little bit of the flavor of some of the power and flexibility of Asterisk and different use cases. What we'll do here is looking at the schedule, we will probably take a break around 10:35. So we'll go for another half hour roughly and take a break. And I would just encourage you to have a chat with the folks next to you, introduce yourself, share your name, ask them, hey, what are you guys doing with Asterisk, or what are you hoping to do with Asterisk? And I would certainly love to hear more of your stories. If I could, I would take the whole day, and I would want to hear all of your stories. But I know that you guys came for some content, so let's get back to it, talking about Asterisk architecture. So in this Asterisk architecture, our goals will be, we'll talk about Asterisk and Linux, talk about how Asterisk has a modular architecture. Maybe Asterisk versus SCF, which was a project we had for a while, if that's something you guys are familiar with, talking about channels, interfaces, and we'll get into a little bit of our config file syntax. So the first thing to know about Asterisk is that it will run on any Unix-based platform. So Asterisk will actually run on Cygwin or BSD or even Mac OS X. And in fact, there was just a little bit of banter in our developer forums that some of our SIP developers, if you guys know Ule, he's going to be hanging out, and he wanted to run Asterisk on his Mac, because it's just a whole lot nicer to run natively. And so there was a couple other developers that jumped in and said, hey, here's a couple homebrew scripts that I kind of created to make everything run nicely on the Mac. And so people run Asterisk on the Mac. But predominantly, you're going to want to run Asterisk on Linux. And so it'll run on any Unix-based system, but you want to run it on Linux. Red Hat, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS. There are over 300 different distributions of Linux or more. Actually, I don't even know. Mad Dog, do you know how many different distributions of Linux, if you had to estimate?
Estimated anywhere from 550 to 1,000.
550 to 1,000 different Linux distributions. So which one do you pick, right? So my answer to that question, so how many folks would say they are very familiar with Linux? Okay, a good portion of the room. How many folks would say moderately familiar or have used a bit of Linux? Okay, and how many folks, I've never used Linux before, but maybe looking to learn a little bit? Okay, one or two, which is good. We've got lots of Linux in the room. So if you're one of like the one or two that's never used Linux and you just didn't want to raise your hand, I often get the question, which Linux distribution do I use? There's over 550, maybe 1,000 different distributions. And the answer is the one that your buddy uses, right? So the reality is that Asterisk will run great on any of them, right? But the reason why you want to use something that your friend is using is because that then becomes your first level of support, right? So the idea is, does Asterisk run better on Red Hat-based distributions like Fedora or CentOS, or does Asterisk run better on Ubuntu? It runs great on both, right? Yeah.
I always say it's the one my customer uses.
Always the one that my customer uses. That is an excellent answer as well. Which Linux distribution? Is the customer, they're already on Ubuntu? That's great. We can stick Asterisk on Ubuntu, right? Asterisk is most often used on Ubuntu and CentOS. And so Ubuntu, flavor of Debian, and CentOS based on or a clone of Red Hat. And those are the most popular, with actually CentOS being the absolute most popular. And so a lot of distributions like Asterisk Now or the free PBX distro are actually providing CentOS Linux. So that becomes the one that's the most familiar within the Asterisk community, but certainly you can run it on whatever you like. Does anybody here running Asterisk on a distribution of Linux that's not on the screen? What are you running on? On Gen 6? On Gen 2. Okay, running Asterisk on Gen 2. So that's pretty awesome as well. So really, it runs on whichever one you want to use. Asterisk does have a modular design. And if you're familiar with Linux, this is, you're kind of familiar with shared objects and, kernel modules. And in a very similar fashion, Asterisk is also modular in its architecture. So Asterisk has a simple core, and Asterisk has a simple core, and it has dynamically loaded modules that are going to add functionality, right? So in this case, here we have Asterisk, and here's the core of Asterisk. And the core does very little. All of the functionality in Asterisk comes from the modules. So right now, there are no modules loaded in Asterisk. So if you have no modules loaded in Asterisk, which never happens, it happens like if we haven't started Asterisk yet, right? So let's say we haven't started Asterisk yet. So there's no modules loaded. So it doesn't have any functionality, of course, because it's not started, right? But let's just say you had like a lab system or something like that, right? And for the sake of illustration, you were going to unload all the modules. This would never happen, but to illustrate the point, Asterisk, for example, would not necessarily be able to dial a phone because app dial is not loaded. So this module right here represents app dial, which is a dial plan application that bridges calls together. And so app dial is the most frequently used dial plan application within Asterisk. Like I mentioned some others earlier, app queue does queuing, app conf bridge does conferencing. There's a lot of different dial plan applications. And so here we haven't loaded it, so it doesn't dial. So here we go. And we load it into Asterisk. And now that module's loaded, it has that functionality. What's really nice about this architecture is that it lends itself towards both security and performance. And so from a security standpoint, one of the mechanisms that you use to secure Asterisk is to only load the modules that you need. Right? So this is just a basic, whatever your IT practice is, right? Whatever type of integration you're doing, you always know that you turn off everything you're not using, right? You want to close off that vector of attack. The way you do that in Asterisk is by only loading the modules that you need. I try to call my phones. Let's see if I can do it upside down. I get nothing, right? Because Asterisk can't dial, it's got no dial. There is no application dial. I just got rid of it. Again, you'd never do this in a production system, but unless you were trying to be funny. Or have a long vacation. Actually, I was talking with Warren one year. So Warren Shelby is another one of our AstroCon talkers, and one time we were at the DCAP dinner. So actually, if you earn your DCAP, you can come to this very special and elite DCAP dinner. So anyway, Warren and I were talking at the DCAP dinner about talk ideas and what we wanted our talks to be. And our one talk idea was how to troll your friends with Asterisk. So one way is to unload app dial on them, and just anyway, we'll load it back in. We will hit the redial, maybe. And everything works as we expected. Now I'm actually using that dial plan application. I have a few warnings there because I have other dial plan syntax and logic. But I'm going to do module show like SO. And if I just say, show me the stuff that's a shared object or like SO, that's everything, right? All of these modules are shared objects. And here they are. And you can see that I'm getting some nice output here on the command line. It's telling me, for example, that app CDR, we'll tell Asterisk not to maintain a CDR for that call, and I could even do a little bit of more dial plan application. Yeah. I thought I'm on 11. Let's see. Core show version. Asterisk 11.2 cert 1. So I'm on certified Asterisk 11. You were noticing some weird modules in there, maybe. So yeah, this is something good to note about modules. Modules are version dependent. Okay. And so this is a little bit of bonus or advanced tip. If you're upgrading between versions of Asterisk, so let's say you were going from Asterisk 1.8 to Asterisk 11, or Asterisk 11 to Asterisk 12, those modules are version dependent. So you are going to want to remove the old modules and install the, when you recompile, you're going to want to make sure that you don't have old modules in there because they are version dependent. And so those live in var lib asterisk, or no, my bad. No, they're going to live in user lib asterisk modules. So here is where the modules live, right? By default, when Asterisk boots up, it's going to look in this directory, user lib asterisk modules. It's going to take everything in there. It's going to load it all in. That's kind of the default behavior. So when you're compiling Asterisk, when you're building Asterisk, and I'll talk a little bit more about compiling and installation in the next session. When you're compiling Asterisk, you can tell it to build or to not build certain modules. So here are all of these modules, and by default, it's going to load them all in. And so if I want to performance tune my Asterisk system, there might be some things I'm not using. So for example, if I'm not using app macro, don't load it, right? If I'm now app macro is probably not going to cost you resources unless you actually call it from the dial plan. But for example, your channel drivers, right? If I do core show module, nope, actually let me do this. Core show channel types. Okay, so currently in my channel types, I have conf bridge, SIP, multicast RTP, EEX, and some other pseudo channels. But for example, so here I have the EEX module loaded, and EEX stands for Inter Asterisk Exchange. That's IEX. It's a VoIP protocol. A lot like well, any other VoIP protocol. I was going to say it's a lot like SIP, but it's actually not a lot like SIP. It actually has a lot of differences. The point is you can use it to connect trunks predominantly. So EEX is very much designed to connect between two Asterisk systems. And so let's say I was not using EEX. Then I could do module unload chan underscore EEX. And you pronounce that, instead of IAX, you pronounce that EEX. It's kind of like geeks. Now you guys know how to say it. So I could unload that. And now I'm no longer serving that service over port 4569. So 4569 is a port for EEX. And when that module was loaded, Asterisk was listening on that port, right? Is a vector of attack. But now I've unloaded the module. I've closed that off. It no longer is serving that out. So this is, like I said, this is a mechanism for security. Only load the modules you need. This is a mechanism for performance tuning. If you only load the modules you need, you're not using resources on other modules. And I've showed you how to do it from the command line. We'll just jump here into configuration and just kind of jump ahead. I'm skipping around a little bit. But here I am at etc asterisk or etc asterisk. And etc asterisk is the directory where all of your configuration is going to be stored with asterisk. And so if you are used to using asterisk with a GUI, you may have never jumped into etc asterisk. But I can show you that there are a lot of .conf files there in etc asterisk. How many folks in the room are predominantly using asterisk with a GUI? So with some type of distribution like free PBX, PBX in a flash, Switchvox. A few folks. How many people are configuring Asterisk via the .conf files? Okay, so a large percent of those in the room have actually hopped in the .conf files before, which is pretty cool and exciting. Although the GUIs are really good too. Distributions are good too. So if you're new to Asterisk, if you're checking it out, today we're kind of running through how to manually do everything. But there are some automated ways to do it. Do you guys have any more heckling? I asked these guys to heckle me. They're not heckling a lot. They're gonna. I put them on the spot to heckle now. Now they can't do it. It'll come when I least expect it. They have heckle stage fright. So the way to think about this between the .conf file or using a GUI is imagine like you're writing a letter, right? And so if you're writing a letter, you can just write whatever you want. But let's say you have like a form letter or something like Mad Libs. You guys ever done like a Mad Libs? A form letter kind of, it starts out, it already has some infrastructure, so it saves you time. You don't have to write everything out. It's like a template, and you just fill in some stuff. So maybe you fill in like the person's name or some key information. And that's kind of what the GUI is like, right? Using the GUI gives you access to some of the things, but not everything. It kind of is a shortcut for you. It does a lot of the work for you, but it doesn't give you access to everything that the software does. when you use the .conf files, whether you're actually using them as text files or whether you're storing them in database configuration, that gives you access to the full onslaught of everything that Asterisk can do. So that's kind of differentiator there. Today, we will be talking about the .conf files. Now, you might see this, and you might see this today, and you might use command line configuration today and come over to the fastest dude to the dial tone contest and use that today. And then for the rest of your life, you're always using a GUI, and that's great, and that's fine, and lots of people do that. Or you might use this configuration, and this is the way it's done, and both are just fine. Like I said, they both have advantages and disadvantages. But looking at a configuration file, let's open up modules.conf, okay? So modules.conf is a configuration file that Asterisk reads in to know which modules to load. So when it boots, Asterisk boots up, and it says, which module should I load? And so like I said, by default, we have this option set, auto load equals yes. And the way to understand the syntax of this file is that Asterisk parses this file line by line. So it starts up here at the first line, and it says, what is this? Okay, the first thing I got was a semicolon. Well, a semicolon is a comment operator. So that basically means ignore this line. It's a comment, right? And comments are helpful for either writing yourself documentation, like this one that says Asterisk configuration file. That's just a note to you, the developer, of what's going on in the file, right? But Asterisk is going to ignore it because it doesn't care about that. The other way that comments are nice are to be able to toggle options on and off, and I'll show you guys that in a moment. So we get down here, and we get to a bracketed section. The bracketed section is a section header, and this is very similar to any style syntax. If you guys are familiar with like INI or any style syntax, it's the same thing. These bracketed section headers denote a section. So when Asterisk gets to this section, it says, OK, I'm in a section. I'm going to do something particular. And for this, it's the module section. And then it's going to look for a series of key value pairs. And in this case, we have a key value pair. We have auto load equals yes. Auto load is the key, and yes is the value. So could be yes, could be no. For other key value pairs, you could have other options. But in this case, auto load equals yes. What that means is, hey, let me look in user lib asterisk modules, get everything in there, auto load it all in. And you say, but I don't want everything. What can I do? Well, you can explicitly say, do not load certain things, right? So you can say, for example, this GTK console, I do not want to load that, right? Or you could say, I want to explicitly load certain things. So instead of auto load equals yes, you could say auto load equals no, and then explicitly specify the modules you want to load. Or you can auto load equals yes, which is my preferred method, and then explicitly no load the modules you don't want for security and for performance tuning. And that's a very simple comp file. That's all the options there. And what happens is when Asterisk starts up, it parses that file, it figures out what to load, and it loads that stuff. And that's how you can use those modules there. This is just talking about the core, that it's simple core. It does module management, it reads in configuration, handles system timing, channel management, but most of the functionality, like I said, dialing, conferencing, voicemail, those are done through dial plan applications. This slide right here is kind of going over everything I just talked about. So I kind of gave you guys the demo, but does anybody have on their laptop an Asterisk system that they can SSH into now? Anybody bring one along? Okay, a few folks. I would encourage you to, tonight, download some type of VM software. VirtualBox is freely available, open source at no cost. You could use that, or if you've got some other VM software, load that onto your laptop, install Asterisk now, and get Asterisk up and running, and then you could have that while you're in sessions to actually, you could run the demo right along with me, right? But I kind of did this module show-like. And then here's the warning here that I was talking about where modules are version dependent. And so, like I said, if you're moving between versions of Asterisk, you're going to want to delete or remove all of the previous modules and then only build the new modules. The reason why is sometimes modules change name, right? And so like let's say in version 1.8, and I don't have a good example off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna have to like make it up. But let's just say, for example, if this thing happened to exist, that there's a module called AppDial1, and then in the next version of Asterisk, it was called AppDial2. Well, when you compile Asterisk, it's gonna build AppDial2, but AppDial1 is still there. And what's Asterisk gonna do by default? It's gonna load everything that's there, so that's gonna cause some system issues. So this is why when you're upgrading, you wanna blow away all the old modules, and then use only the new modules. Now, the reason you would want to back up that modules directory would be as if you had some custom modules. Now, I was talking to some gentlemen earlier that had designed some custom C modules for Asterisk. This is the other powerful thing about Asterisk is that if everything was done in core, in order to add new functionality, you need to have an understanding of everything that's going on across the whole system in order to extend it, in order to upgrade it, right? But because Asterisk has a standard set of C APIs, you can actually write your own C module and just load that module and add functionality. You could add a new channel. You could add a new type of device. How many folks have built their own custom C module for Asterisk before? We have a few folks. What did your custom C module do? OK, so you guys created a speech driver for Asterisk. You built it in a custom C module. Doug, what'd your custom C module do?
It enables us to surf into a special HTML file over a.
So Doug built a custom module that this custom module was able to speak to very specialized hardware. So he had a specialized endpoint that talked special configuration protocols, and he wanted Asterisk to configure the phone, built a custom C module, didn't have to do a bunch of other code in Asterisk, just built a module, and that module was then able to configure the phone. So these are kind of some use case examples of where you could build a custom module. One of these types of modules that I talked about is the channel driver. So I've already mentioned a few of these, SIP, Session Initiation Protocol. Everyone in the room is probably familiar with SIP, but if you're not, SIP is basically a VoIP protocol or voice over IP protocol. In fact, in some cases, some folks might say it's the voice over IP protocol. It's the most ubiquitous and most often used voice over IP protocol, and so Asterisk supports SIP as well. And SIP has a specification. Unfortunately, not everybody always follows the specification very closely, so there are some room for interpretation. So you would think if I had device A and I had device B and they're both speaking SIP, they should be able to talk to each other. And in 98% of the cases they can, but every once in a while you try to get some SIP devices together and they don't talk to each other. And what, of course, is the example of a device that talks SIP but typically is going to crash everything else on your network and not allow the SIP to go through? It's the SIP AGL, right? Or the ALG. Anybody dealt with application layer gateways? So sometimes this is a mechanism that's basically designed to say, hey, I want to read into the SIP packet and I want to be able to modify it and I want to be able to basically do like deep inspection of the packet to know what's going on with the SIP. And it's a mechanism to try to get around some of the natting issues that are a problem in SIP. But oftentimes what they do is they end up mangling the SIP packets. And so when you turn on the application level gateway, it actually makes SIP stop working. So that's just one example. Case in point is, for the most part, in most of the use cases, if something is talking to SIP, it can talk to Asterisk. So any SIP phone, Digium has SIP phones. There's a lot of companies here that have SIP phones, and you can talk to Asterisk over SIP. You can also do SIP trunking, as we already mentioned. There are even some folks in the room who that is their business to do SIP trunking. In addition, EEX is another type of channel into Asterisk, right? And so we call these channels. And the way to think of them is not so much as like channels on the TV, but to think of them kind of like the English channel, where it's a channel that connects two bodies of water. So a channel in Asterisk connects two things together. So think of like the phone connecting to my VM, and there's a channel there, right? And so, so here's probably a good example. If I dial from this phone to this phone through Asterisk, how many channels am I using? 2, I'm using 2 channels. And so some of you might say, why do I need to use 2 channels? This is because Asterisk is a back-to-back user agent. So the difference between, say, a back-to-back user agent and a SIP proxy is they're 2 different types of SIP devices, right? So I talked about like Camelio, it's a SIP proxy. You often use that in the front to use your Asterisk on the back end to do like routing like this, right? So the proxy is never the destination of a call, right? It's never the endpoint that you say, I'm sending the call and this is where it's going to end up. The proxy does exactly that. It just serves to proxy that request to something else. It's always going to forward the call onto something else. And if you have one SIP endpoint sending a call through a proxy to another SIP endpoint, there's going to be one call ID, one unique ID across that whole realm because the proxy is just relaying the message, right? A back-to-back user agent, on the other hand, which is what Asterisk is, actually intercepts the call. It itself is the endpoint to the call. So what happens is when this endpoint wants to make a call over to here, what it really does is it dials Asterisk. And then it says, Asterisk, I want this other resource. And then Asterisk spawns up a new channel to call out to the other resource. So here, this is why you have 2 channels up in Asterisk. And in fact, I might be able to even show that on my CLI. So some of you guys are probably familiar with, if you connect to Asterisk, you go do *-r. But I like to use the Scooby-Doo version, Asterisk. And that gets you on there too. So if I dial out here, and what I will do is get rid of some of that feedback. Sorry about that. And I can say core show channels. And we can see, here I have 2 SIP channels active. I have a channel between the A. Dorner phone, or Alan Dorner's phone, and between R. Fergus, or Ryan Fergus's phone. They each have a channel into Asterisk. Now, if I were to, let's see, what extensions do I have available? Let's see if this. Okay. And so now, if I show the channels, you can see there's only one active channel. And that's because I've dialed from the phone into an IVR, and there's only one connection into Asterisk, right? So that's what a channel is in Asterisk, is a connection in to the system. You can have a SIP channel, as I just showed with SIP phones. You can have an EEX channel, and typically an EEX channel would connect to Asterisk servers. And EEX has some unique functionality that allows it to connect those 2 Asterisk servers together to do some things that SIP can't do, because SIP is a general purpose VoIP protocol that's used by everybody, and EEX is literally the inter-Asterisk exchange protocol. And so it knows that there's an Asterisk on each end, and it can do some special things. In addition, you could have some DoDi channels. So DoDi is the Digium Asterisk hardware device interface. DoDi channels would be things like your TDM connections via like a Digium telephony card. So you would have like PRI channels are going to be DoDi. Analog FXO or FXS channels are going to be DoDi. And so these are some of the channel drivers into Asterisk. Looking at some of the ways that you can interface into Asterisk. This is, again, just talking about the general architecture and things that you can do. And I've talked about some of them, but I'll relay again here. So the .conf files, we looked at that, and I'll show an example here again on the slide that illustrates a little bit better. So if you're watching on the video, or if you're taking notes, or I'll have some slides that show the config file syntax. We have the CLI, the command line interface, and I showed the command line interface. The command line interface is very nice because it lets you issue commands as an administrator that affect the system or to query the system for information. And then I talked about the Asterisk Gateway interface and the Asterisk Manager interface. And pay no attention to the man typing now. It was always there, the Asterisk REST interface. But actually, that's brand new. So brand new in Asterisk 12. And actually, today, if you are here today, Asterisk 12 is only an alpha version. So this is brand new, very nascent stuff. Super, super cool, though. If you get a chance to learn more about the REST interface, we're all very excited about it. But the Asterisk REST interface, so these three right here are the APIs, or the programmatic interfaces in the Asterisk. And they each have some different ways that they behave. If you guys have questions about that, feel free to ping me more. I won't be covering a lot of AGI, AMI, ARI in today's session. But if there's questions about it, maybe I can, and maybe I can show you guys some of that code too as we progress on through. So, the config file syntax, like I said, is some type of filename.conf. We have a section header. We have key value pairs. We've got the comment operator. You can also do block comments, although I don't recommend it. In fact, I'll give you guys a freebie tip here. Is one of my favorite tips. Extensions. Where am I at? Let's see, Asterisk extensions.com. That's some pretty good heckling. That was like on the spot. That was awesome. I have this joke going with one of our technical trainers, or we're doing some lab stuff before coming here to AstroCon, and of course, whoever's being watched, you can't type, right? So you can type just fine, and then as soon as somebody's watching you, you're like, my fingers are jello. So in any case, I need to go to the typing class at 3 o'clock. This is a cool thing you can do. So this is extensions.conf. I will get more into what all this means. If this is all gobbledygook to you, that's cool. You don't need to understand it now. But if it's not, if you somewhat understand it, I'll show you guys a little trick here. So this might be something, actually, we'll do it this way. Like this. And so you have a bunch of stuff, right? And so now these some things are being parsed by Asterisk. Asterisk is reading the config file line by line, is parsing it out, and if something was actually meant something, then Asterisk would do something with it. But in this case, I want to comment out a line, right? And so if I comment out the line, it means Asterisk is not going to parse that. But what happens if I want to comment out all of this stuff? Well, I'll show you guys a secret trick here in Vim. How many folks we have use Vim or VI? Okay, I think this only works in Vim. And so you can set up your bash profile to do like, set a variable there. So if you type VI, you get Vim. Then you get a little Vim improved, right? VI improved. Is anybody using Emacs? Nobody. Oh, yes, a couple of guys. So once upon a time in the lores of the Linux land, this was like a large issue of contention. Of course, you see the Vim people have won and overwhelmed the room. But that's okay. Actually, Emacs stuff is cool too, because like if you're on a Mac and you hit like, Control H will like backspace, or I use like Control N and P to move around and stuff, and that's like Emacs style. So anyway, I like them both. The point is, if you are using Vim, if you are a Vim operator, this is a trick for using your dial plan configuration that I like a lot. And the idea here is I want to comment out all these lines. So the first thing you do is going to hit Control V. Control V is going to get you into visual block mode. What this does is, unlike the normal visual mode, is it lets you do like a visual block, right? It's just a certain number of lines up and down, right? So I'm in a visual block, and I'm going to go down the full line to select that. Now, if I wanted to, I could just delete the S's, right? But in this case, I want to insert something. So I'm going to hit capital I to insert. I will insert a single semicolon. And now, when I escape out of my multimodal, whoa, comments all the way down. So some of you guys right now are like, oh man, that's awesome. That's gonna hook me up. I know that's how I felt when I learned it, so I've now passed along to you. If you need that all written down again, you guys can watch the video. So the TMC guys are awesome. They always hook it up. And that's about it. So do we have any questions there on the architecture of Asterisk? Modules, the syntax of the config file, any questions on the content that we've covered so far? Okay. Well, let's hop in for a short break. What we will do is I'll put the schedule slide up here. So we'll take about a half-hour break. We'll come back at 11 and hop back into the content. And like I said, I really encourage you to meet your neighbor, talk to the folks here, network. That's what Asterisk is all about. And in this, during this break time, I would love to hear some more stories from you as well.